Okay, so if you guys don't know, I'm a convert to Islam. I converted 4 years ago now. This is my mum. Hello. You probably met her before. And you are going to ask an imam some questions today.
I am indeed, yes.
That you wrote down.
Yes.
That, one second. So, Imam Shafi, who's someone who I know really well and trust, and he's such a great person. You're going to be speaking to him. You're going to speak to him and ask him some questions.
Yes.
And let's see what he has to say.
Yes.
We can't make the intro too long because he's
Hello. I have the
Hi.
dog staying with me.
No problem. How are you?
It's okay. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Lovely to meet you, Michelle.
And you? Yes. Yes.
Excellent.
Okay, so I have some questions.
Sure.
We've written them down because I forget what I'm going to ask people. So I'm not being rude when I ask these questions. These are just things that baffle me about things that I believe that there is no proof to.
Okay.
So one of my main things is Muslims believe that they're going to go to a better place when they die. So how do you know it's a better place when nobody's ever been there and come back? Because obviously to die, that's like very final.
It
so
is.
To sort of half die and come back and say you've had one of these, like I saw the light or something, is not really dying, is it?
No, I understand what you're saying. No, that's a good point. Good point. Okay. In this regard, are you a Christian at all, or do you have a bit of a Christian background?
I was christened.
Yeah.
But that's it. It was
so in this regard, Islam, Christianity, Judaism all come from exactly the same starting point, and actually they share the same heritage, they share the same roots. So it's in a sense less a question of why do Muslims believe as opposed to why do believers believe, whether Christian, whether Muslim, or whether Jewish. And from a faith perspective, I suppose the answer that I'd give to you is it works in the sense that you believe the revelation and the claim of a messenger or a prophet who has certain things to say. So the question then is, what makes him credible? What makes the prophet believable in so that you then accept the things that he has to say that follow after that? Why do Muslims believe that there is an afterlife and that there is something more? A better place.
Yes.
And so I was just saying, well, actually, it's not just a Muslim thing, but it's actually, this is something that we share in common, or the Islamic, Christian, the Jewish faiths all come from the same point, really. And why you'd believe anything, whether it's to do with the hereafter or indeed to do with this world. One of those questions was about eating pork, I think, right? So
yes.
so it can be stuff to do with life after death. It can be stuff to do with the everyday business of life and what you eat and what you drink and how you live your life. Why does anyone believe anything really comes down at its essence to belief in or faith in the credibility of the person, the source of knowledge. So where are we getting this information from, and what is it that makes this person, this conduit of knowledge, believable to Muslims, to Christians, and to Jews? So, and I think there are two parts to this. The first part is there something more, or is it just us?
Yes.
Right, we exist. That much we can all agree on. A believer in a religious person, an atheist, someone who's across the spectrum, can all agree that we believe that we exist. We can agree on that point. We see one another. We interact with one another. We recognize also that there's a difference between life and death. Right, we see that there's inanimate matter all around us. The chair I'm sitting on, and the wall behind me, and the stuff that, and this is all, we're carbon-based organisms. And yet so too is, the rest of the world around us. Most of it is built on carbon. And yet we're alive, and an ant is alive, they're animate, as opposed to a pebble, as opposed to a piece of glass, as opposed to, these things. So what makes, yet we're all matter, we're material. So is there something that distinguishes some lumps of matter from others? Some are alive and others are just there. They're just stuff. They're stuff that we can use and mold and make stuff out of if we want to, or not. And for billions of years, rocks have been rocks, and grains of sand have been grains of sand, and they've gone over the course of time, been through been weathered by their environment and changed in certain ways. But some of us, we're alive. And so is life different? Can that be explained through matter? And the belief of faith, or the faith perspective, is we're of the earth, everything around us, like the rest of it. But the spark of life, the soul, if you like, which animates us and makes us seeing, feeling, beings, is not of here. And it's not just, but that comes from somewhere. And along with that something comes a sense of right and wrong and good and bad and truth and falsehood and love, and also dislike of certain things. And so before we get to the question of, is there a God? Because that's, again, a part of, is there a better life?
It all sort of goes on to one, is there a heaven and earth? Is there a God? Why do you think it's a better place? Why do you think you'll go there and I won't? I mean, it's all sort of, it all comes in one.
Yeah, it's all packaged up
and
together.
Then I have this other thought, which I'll just throw into the works, is how do we know? This is one that I've had many a discussion with people, that we're not already dead, and that there is another world before us, and there's people that are grieving us, and we've gone to this better place, and we're then just going to go through it all again and go on, and you just keep moving on. Because actually, I'm quite frightened of dying, because I might not like it, and it is final. There's no coming back. And I don't want to die, because if I get there and I don't like it, I'm sort of a bit stuck, innit? I quite like it here, but then, so I have this. It is like many questions, but it is all.
They're all connected.
It all revolves around what, like you say, not just Muslim. Most religious people believe that they are going to die and they're going to go to heaven, hell, whatever. I have a joke with my friend. I'm going to hell because I'll know everybody there. I'm not expecting anything else. It's just a running joke that I have with my friend. But people really believe there is two parts to the after sort of thing.
Okay, so these are really deep philosophical questions, and I'm worried we may not be able to do justice to everything in the 18 minutes we have left. But I'm happy to try and have maybe make a good go of it and get started, and perhaps we'll pick it up again in future if you think it's worthwhile. But so the stuff to do with the afterlife is out of reach, is inaccessible to us. My dad died about 4 weeks ago. Well, his funeral was just over 4 weeks ago.
I'm sorry.
And thank you. So, we've literally just had been dealing with all of this stuff. And I'm an imam in the community, and I speak to people, and I'm there to do funerals, and I'm there to support people when they're going through these difficult times. And yet when it happens to you, it's still the finality, just as you say, of it. The fact that you're holding him.
You're never going to see him.
You're holding his hand. You're looking deeply into his face, and and you reckon everything that you have about this person. This chapter is now closed.
Yeah.
So the question and where he's gone to is not accessible to any of us, and yet it's the inevitable direction that we're all headed towards.
Yes.
Every living being has to go there. Right?
We've all got to do it.
We've all got to do it now. And this brings me back to the essential question. If that stuff which is out of reach, we can start to try to make sense of by reference to the things that are in our realm of experience. So we know that we know that we're interacting. We know that, yesterday was some stuff happened, and today another bunch of things, and tomorrow, etc., etc. Or at least we think we know. We don't know what tomorrow holds. So
thank God.
Thank God, right? But it gives us hope, and we plan our days, and we've got stuff in our diary for next week and Wednesday, a fortnight from now, and all of these sort of things. So given that we're more than just matter, because the question essentially really boils down to this: is there only matter, Is there only the physical stuff that we interact with and that we can see? Or is there something more than that? And that more relates both to the soul and it does to the creator of the soul.
Yeah.
So from the religious perspective, I guess the way that this is looked at is this. Everything that you can see around you is doing stuff. The sun rises and it gives us light and it gives us warmth, and leaves photosynthesize, and plants and fruits and vegetable grow, and we eat those things, and then we interact with one another, and we have love, and we have, we care for people, and we have values, and we have things that we feel very, very strongly about. And if somebody, says a certain thing, that impacts me in a very different way to if they say a different thing, and one makes me laugh, and one makes me really cross, and one makes me feel, all sorts. So we're human beings and we react to these things. Where is any of this accounted for in just plain matter? Plain matter, which is stones and pebbles and grains of sand and pieces of glass, and that's matter. Where do all of these things come from? If people say God isn't real because we can't see him, we don't have proof for him, then by that same logic, none of this stuff should be real. And so it shouldn't matter if a child is crying because their parents are not there. That shouldn't, yet that will affect every human being. Forget a child, an animal, an injured bird will cause us to stop and to want to care for it and to pay attention to it. It bothers us if if someone says something or does the thing that's upsetting, and not just on a personal selfish level, because that's the instinct for survival, but someone says something that's offensive to another person, that's offensive to us. So do those things not matter? So the question that I like to sometimes ask is, do we believe in good and bad? Good and bad. And if we do believe in good and bad, what's the proof of that? What's the justification? Where does that come from? I've got a glass here of water, and it's mine. And if someone came into my and somebody else could have their own glass of water, and that's theirs. Now, if someone comes and takes my glass of water, somehow I have ownership. I have this sense of this is mine, and you can't just take my glass of water, and you've got to ask. And if I give it to you, that's fine, but you can't just come and help yourself to it. But it is just matter. It's glass. I went and picked it up from a shelf in a store and gave someone a piece of paper or a coin, or maybe electronically did a tap thing, and suddenly transferred ownership, and it becomes mine. And I now have rights and claims. But where does any of this stuff come from? So in the perspective of faith, the Quran's way, the Quran is our holy book, right? Like the Bible and the Torah. The Quran addresses this by saying, chapter 4, verse 1. O humankind, ya ayyuhan nas, that's all of you, men, women, black, white, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, atheist, Buddhist, whoever, whatever. O humankind, we made you all from a single soul. Your starting point was one.
We're all related.
We're all related, but more than that, our souls, right? You have a soul, and your daughter and your granddaughter, they're their own distinct individual beings, and yet there's a kinship that binds you together. And so the Quran says, and that kinship binds you to the furthest regions of the earth, to someone who's as different to you in culture, in color, in language, in every which way you can think of, yet your souls are tied in together. And that's why we don't share the same languages, but a smile means the same thing in sub-Saharan Africa as it does in Yorkshire, and a tear and happiness and kindness, an act of kindness, everybody, and an act of cruelty, everyone recognizes. And we know all of these things. Where do these things, these values, right and wrong, good and bad, truth and falsehood, which are not material, and yet they matter more than the material in so many ways, because people will give up everything they have to fight for a cause. And it might be the defense of freedom, it might be standing up for the weak and the innocent who are being abused by, right? And we'll give up everything. Why would we do that if there's only the material? So the Quran's way of answering it is, we made you all from one soul. And from that one soul, we made two. So we speak of Adam and Eve, but really the mother and father, the one becomes two. Scientifically today, we know that a single cell division, one cell becomes two. And literally at the point of conception, a sperm cell and an ovum meet. The sperm cell begins to now fertilize the ovum until it becomes one cell. It's a single cell made up of half of the genetic coding of the mum and half from the dad. That one cell splits and you've got two. Two become four, four become eight. Cell division. And soon every single part of the human body is formed out of this process of the splitting part. So the Quran says, we made you from one soul, and from that we made its partner, the soul mate. Literally, that's where the term comes from. For that soul we made its mate, and thereby did we populate this earth with multitudes of men and women.
Millions.
These millions and millions. You're all teeming around with your heads full of ideas and dreams, but you all came from this starting point. And then the Quran says, so be in awe of God, of your Lord, for it is in his name that you have rights to demand of one another. Going back to my glass, the reason I can say this is mine, you can't just take it off me, and that's yours, and I have to respect what's yours, and you should respect what's mine. And the reason that it's wrong for someone to be abusive to another person, but we expect kindness and we appreciate politeness, and the reason we have these rights is because it's more than you and me. Have you ever heard that expression, something's greater than the sum of its parts?
No, sorry.
You know, the idea that
Ramadan, the time of the year where Allah gives us all the opportunity to become the best version of ourselves. If you want to make this Ramadan a transformative one, then I recommend you download the app Adhan by Islamic Finder. My favorite part of the app is Ramadan by Adhan. Here you can track your fast, you can complete a good deed every day for 30 days. There's Sehri and Iftar times, you can do greeting cards. I personally use the app for Quran recitations, tasbih, du'as, prayer times, and just to inspire me with amazing Islamic reminders, which you can actually, if you scroll through, you get better than Instagram Islamic reminders. Also, when I'm not praying, there's an amazing section called Pink Guide, which has carefully curated adhkar and actually practical tips that are really useful. I love this app, and I know you guys will too, so please check it out. The download link for free is in the description and the comments, inshallah.
If we get all the individual parts together that make up a human being, so we've got the eyes, we've got the ears, we've got the lungs, we've got all of the organs, we've got skin, hair, put that all together. The human being that's made up of all of these bits, the total is more than just the individual components. Because you can have all of those things, but a person is much more. Their dreams, their aspirations, their feelings, their opinions, their humor, their all of those things, aren't they? They're all of their kindness, their strength, their support, all of those things. So if we're all more than just the matter can't account for all that we are, where does the rest of me come from? And in there, the scripture says, do people think that they created themselves? Do they think that they popped into existence out of nowhere? And that's sort of
beyond me.
Yeah. And so this is why people say, well, or religious faith has always held this soul of ours is a lot older than we are.
Okay, yeah, because there's always that, has it come from someone else? People believe that. I've had moments in my life where I've gone, I've been here before, and I know I haven't, and I'm like, just down there is something, and it is just down there is something or other, and I know for a fact I've never been there. So maybe when you die, you just pop up into someone that's just been born.
So then we come to the question of if the soul is real, if the soul exists, or the consciousness, whatever word we want to give to it, the fact that we have feelings, that you just that example you gave, you've got a really strong feeling that this is familiar, even though it's the first time you've come here, and you can't, that sense of awareness, all of that, that's not the physical you. So there's more than just the physical to us. There's the physical, but there's also the metaphysical, more than the physical, the spiritual, the intelligent, the conscious. So that, where does that come from? Does that come? Now, there are lots of different theories, and one of those is reincarnation, the one that you just said. Maybe the soul's just recycled. It's literally
come round and round again.
And people talk about in a past life was a Roman God, and in this life I'm this, and the
Some
next
people
life.
fully believe, don't they? Fully believe that they can recite names, people, places, all sorts of weird stuff.
So there's a lot of, and so that's one idea, that's one theory. And then, there's others, which is, well, maybe we're just streams of energy and consciousness, and for a period of time we're trapped in this body, but then we take flight, we go somewhere else. Whilst all of these are different ideas, from a religious perspective, if you ask me, as you have done, why do Muslims believe in the specific narrative idea that we have, which is the soul came and it's going to go somewhere else? The reason is because scripture told us. And so why do I believe in the Quran? There's also the Bible. Well, the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, they're all pretty much on the same place, same page in these things. But there's the Hindu scriptures and Buddhist scriptures and various other writings and ideas. And so for Muslims, it's because we believe in the signs. The Quran introduces itself as a book of signs, and says, the very first verse, if you open the Quran, is all praises to God, Lord of all the worlds. Everything that exists. So that's not just this world. There's a world of the soul. There's a world of angels.
It's going to be a busy place if we all go to the same place. It's going to be very busy, isn't it?
Well, the universe is enormous. But the universe is
wants to be enormous. If everyone that's ever died that was good is going to go to a better place, and they're all going to meet up again.
Well,
how you're going to find your loved ones, I don't know.
You see, that's a good point, but there's another aspect to think about, which is we think of ourselves only in the physical, but there is a spiritual dimension to us. The Quran speaks of that as the breath of God. The soul that makes you and me us is a divine spark. It comes from the Creator. And so the Quran says, God says, we made the human being from a droplet, like the sperm cell, the ovum. They come together, they do their thing. And out of this mingled cells, out of the mingled droplet of mother and father's seed, we create this being that can see and feel and think. Right? This see and hear and feel. In other words, and then the Quran says, after we have breathed the soul into it. So the soul is the breath of God. That soul is, I'm 44 years old. Well, 44 next in a month or so.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But my soul is much older than 44 years old. My soul is the souls of all people, not just mine, all of us. Our souls have existed long before they found expression in this physical body, in this physical.
That's why I feel 150 sometimes.
We all have those mornings, don't we?
It's my soul coming out in me. I'm not really 51. I'm 150.
There you go. We've all got those. We have those days, especially when you've got the kids and you've got all sorts of things happening. I know exactly what you mean. But no, I think there's a truth to that. I think that genuinely there is, because what happens is, like that experience you just said, sometimes you feel something very familiar. It can't be something you've experienced here. The soul has undertaken a journey that's a lot longer than our physical journey. If I've ever physically visited a certain town, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. I've been here before, because 20 odd years ago, I remember coming by here. Well, the soul's also been on a journey, and it's had experiences. So when you talk about, is it going to be busy and how are we going to find one another? We're almost projecting our physical reality onto a spiritual dimension. Because we die and our body's laid to rest. They say ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Because what was of the earth shall be returned to the earth. But what carries on is the soul, which was never of the earth to begin with. Soul was never of here. The soul came from somewhere. That's why I said that the soul can't be accounted for just by matter. We're matter. This is matter. This table's matter.
It must be a calming feeling, because like you say, your father passed away, and for you to think to yourself that he has now gone on to a better place must be quite a comfort to you. When my mum died, it was a quite a traumatic, long illness, and none of us are religious, but we're all Christian, and we got the vicar in because we were at loose ends of is it really what you have to do? Because this sort of panic came over me, was like, oh my God, what if this is really what she has to have, something to see her through to this better place? And I think I would have been a lot more happier about it being someone that believed that the comfort that my mum has now gone to a better place and she is comfortable, because I have these horrible visions that maybe it's not a nice thing. Maybe it was just like someone switching the light off. Maybe you haven't gone to a better place. Yeah. What is your idea of a better place might not be my idea of a better place. It is a subject that I do have big issues with, and I do, in a way, envy people that are religious and that they can say that is what I believe. I don't know why I don't and why I do. I don't.
Of course, and who makes those decisions? Well, I'll tell you one thing, Michelle. We are, all of us, products of our environment to a large extent. You know, and if instead of being brought up in the 21st century in the UK, if both of us had been born in Ethiopia 300 years ago, we'd be having a very different conversation. We'd be very different.
And we'd have had a better lifestyle.
Quite possibly.
The lifestyle now is not brilliant.
Right. Well, actually, you've hit the nail on the head in many ways, because in every material way, right, by every material metric, we're living the dream, right? We've got hot and cold water literally at the turn of a tap. We can switch on, as Cat Stevens said back in the 70s, switch on summer from a slot machine. If it gets too cold, we turn the heating on. If it's too warm, turn the AC on. We can communicate with anyone in the world at just, you know, without.
And everyone wants all good now. Nobody wants the bad, and you can only know things are good to have things that are bad as well. So if everything was all good, you wouldn't understand it was all good, because you need bad to know it's good.
You know, that's so accurate. Now, I've got 3 little girls. I say little. The eldest is 11, but the youngest is 6. And
she'll hate you saying little.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And the 6-year-old, especially, I think, going on 26. But one of the things that it really struck me was how we have a choice to make as parents when you have children. Suddenly, you're no longer thinking about yourself. Now your life revolves around other people, and they get to an age where, you know, and you love them to pieces, and you love them more than anything else in the world, and you want to make sure you can do everything you possibly can. And then you realize, hold on, if I just give everything on a plate, we literally, the term we use to describe a kid who's given everything they ever want is what?
Silver spoon in their mouth.
Silver spoon and spoiled, right? We say,
you're spoiled rotten. There's a lot of them.
In other words, by giving everything, you've not done them any favors. In actual fact, you've done them a massive disservice. You've actually spoiled them. You've helped them. Whereas if they know a little bit of, they need to know the value of things. Now we do too. My children are kids. Now we think about society at large and us. And I've had the great honor of traveling to parts of Africa and South Asia and you know,
where they really get it hard.
But I'll tell you what I've noticed, and this really struck me. I saw kids running around playing in the street without shoes on their feet, with a bit of rubber that's, you know, once upon a time might have been an inflatable football, long since lost any capacity to hold air, but it's still. And
they were happier than our children.
Biggest smiles in the world. Yeah. And genuine sort of, and just the bright eyes and the big smiles, and the people who have nothing. And then you come back to the UK or other parts of the Western world where materially you have everything, and I swear everyone's miserable, and everyone's got anxiety, and everyone's got different things going on. And this isn't to knock any of those mental health issues. They're real, and they're really, you know, but I think there's something to be said for the simplicity. We're natural, organic beings. Yeah, a tough life, but also closer to nature life, to be more in tune with our nature. And this materialistic world that we live in, that's all concrete and glass and plastic, and it's not in our nature, and it robs us of, it gives us everything material, but the soul's gone. The soul.
Well, I said to Aisha earlier on, if people just appreciated more of what they got rather than stressed about what they hadn't got, they would actually be a happier person and enjoy life a lot more. Because I don't know, someone goes down the shop and spends a tenner, the next door neighbour wants to go and spend 15 quid because they just want to outdo them. And I'm like, you should just be grateful for what you've got. But very few people are. They're very materialistic. They're very, what is so-and-so going to think about me? What is this going to look good? Whereas really it doesn't matter what other people think of you. It's about enjoying what you got, not worrying about what you haven't got, and just being a nice person, really.
Now, all of those things that you've just said, that's appreciating more than the material. And that is saying, let's not be materialistic, because it's only stuff.
It is only stuff. Can't take it with you. If you really do die and you really do go to a better place, what you've got here is all you're gonna go out with what you come in with, and that was nothing.
That's right. And that's literally the case. That literally, in fact, to the point that even our body stops being ours. The body says, right, we're done, you and me. It was a nice ride. I'm no longer your hands or your feet. I'm turning back to the soil of the earth. I'm turning back to dust. Good luck to your soul. Now, if I spent my time, however long it may be, for some people it's longer. Some people live to their 90s and 100, and others maybe die, much younger. But however long it is we have, we make a choice in how we use that soul.
So it's not a rehearsal, is it? You only get one go at it.
You only get one go, but we learn along the way. We learn, because I realize I can be mean, I can be selfish, I can be materialistic, and ultimately I've got a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm miserable inside. What was the point? Or I can spend a bit of time for kindness and for caring and for just having a conversation with somebody and for experiencing and sharing a moment and appreciating the beautiful things in life. And I gain from that. I get so much more. And somebody else's maybe days got a little bit brighter. And so, and that's the soul now being turned one way or the other. There's very same, if you've got twins, exactly the same in every single way, almost identical.
Two very different people, though, weren't they?
and if one of them goes to, eat takeaway all the time, just doner kebab and chips and junk food, and the other one's really, eating healthy and working out, and they're going to be, although they started off almost identical genetically, in 20 years' time, one of them's fit and healthy, and their mind and their outlook on life much more positive, and the other one's going to be a wreck in so many different ways. All they've done is subsisted on junk food and just doing nothing and not having purpose. So the modern world, in many ways, because it's got
not good for people.
It's not good. But do you know what?
People even work from home now, so they don't even get up and get dressed anymore. They just sit at home with a shirt on and their pajama.
I know exactly what you're saying.
I've got my pajama bottoms on, by the way.
That's okay. That's okay. It's a Saturday morning, so you're allowed to. Don't worry.
At least I put them on.
You'll take the dogs out for a walk in a bit, won't you? So don't worry.
Yeah.
And it's finally, we've got some nice weather. It's
I hate the winter.
Yeah, first signs of spring. But this felt like a massive digression, but actually it comes all the way back to that initial point. Why the modern world's in such a mess, and why society is so materialistic, and why people are so miserable and so greedy in these parts of the world, is precisely because God's been taken out of the picture. Ouch! It's my elbow on the radio. We've removed God. We've removed the idea. And when I say God, I'm not talking about big man, long beard in the clouds. I mean something other than you and me. The source.
Yes.
The essence of you and me isn't the physical. When I often think to myself, if someone mentions someone I know, immediately a picture comes to my mind. So if you took my mum's name, I know who my mum is. And yet the picture that comes to my mind is very different to the young lady she was 30 years ago. And it's very different to the person she'll go on to be if she's still here in another 20 years' time.
Yes.
So we identify people by their outward and their physical image, and yet the physical is constantly in flux. That's changing. And I look in the mirror today, and my beard's all going grey now, and it's different to how I looked a little while ago. And so and people say that about kids. Oh God, can't believe how much he's shot up, or how much they've grown, or they look so much more like their nan now than they did before. So the physical of you and me is always changing. It is very, very different when you look at baby pictures to when you look at someone when they're at the end of their life. And yet the soul The soul is nurturing. And like the guy who either decides to eat junk food or decides to eat healthy and get a walk and do some running and be a bit more fit and healthy in their lifestyle, you can decide to make your soul beautiful or to make it, really worn out, unwell. That's a good word. And all of it goes, and when you don't have a belief in God, and I don't mean you specifically, I mean society at large. When we've got
I don't believe and I don't disbelieve. I'm a sit on the fence. I wouldn't say I don't believe, but I wouldn't say I do. The one thing I do believe in, though, is I do believe that that date is stamped on your head when you're born and when you die.
That's so religious. I just want to say that is such a religious thing you've said.
With my daughter, she was born 6 weeks early. Why was she born 6 weeks early? Because her due date was, and you'll get like someone in a car accident and 3 people will die and 1 won't. Why did that one not when they were all in that exact same accident? And I think you can change the bit in the middle, but I don't actually think you can change the start and the beginning. I think that is there on your forehead, stamped in, but all you can do is change the bit in the middle.
And the bit in the middle,
part of me that I suppose believes a little bit.
You're a believer at heart. What you just said right there is the essence, Michelle. That's the essence of the scriptures. God says God decides each soul when to let it go, as in to drop it into the world, into the material world, when to call it back. That's his. The bits in between, he left us to decide, and then we have to answer. And if I've lived my life caring and being considerate and trying my best, then I've become happier. It's not even about going to the idea about going to a better place. That's later on. Right in the here and now, a person who's caring and loving and has just a good balance and they're already being rewarded for that in this world. And the person who's mean and selfish and only focused on one set of things, even if they think they're having, it's not an accident that suicide rates and self-harming rates and depression rates are highest in the wealthiest parts of the world, in the materially most advanced parts of the world. People aren't trying to top themselves in Africa anywhere near the place.
Money brings happiness. And I always used to say to my mum, she always used to say to me, it's as easy to love a rich man as it is to love a poor man. And I said, yeah, but money doesn't bring you happiness. She said, no, but you can be miserable in style, can't you?
That's the thing, right? And in the West, we're miserable in style. I think that is that's very spot on.
And she was like, well, and it's not. I know some very wealthy people, and they're probably the most unhappiest because they worry about all sorts of things that I wouldn't worry about because I haven't got any money, so I don't have to worry about it. Whereas they worry about it, and I'm like, really? Money's only got any value if you're going to spend it.
And now there's one further part to this equation I'll present to you, which is money is a value in this world depending on how you use it, but money is also something that we're answerable to God for if he gave us privileges when others didn't get those, and yet we chose to only think about ourselves and not care for others. So the prophet said there are 2 things that a person really doesn't want, and yet in some ways they can be good for you. A person dislikes poverty, and yet having less wealth means you've got less to answer for. Whereas a person who had a great deal has to answer to God. You had all this wealth and there were kids going to school hungry every morning in this society.
So I'd be wealthy because if I had money, I'd just dish it out to people that needed it. So money would be wasted on me. I've always said that.
But actually, I'll tell you, and yet there are billionaires in this society, millionaires, multi-millionaires, and there's kids going to school hungry. There's kids going to bed hungry. And not in somewhere in the third world, right here in the UK today.
Yes.
And so that just shows, and that's where you've got money, you're answerable.
But they don't understand. They don't understand what it means. I mean, I inherited a small amount of money a little while ago, and one of the first things I did, it was near Christmas, was went round the food bank with what I call luxuries, a whole ton of them. I spent about 500 quid and took them round and said, can you dish these out? Because these people have got nothing. I mean, really got nothing.
God
and they're not
bless
going to
you.
get anything nice at Christmas time. And to me, that was a big thing to do, to make someone's day, whether they celebrate or not, just to make their day a little bit happy. Have a chocolate biscuit with your cup of tea. These millionaires look down their nose at, and when they say to you, oh, I've got no money, you think you ain't got a clue of what no money is all about, because they live up here somewhere.
But do you know why? I think part of it is because money's like heroin. It's like cocaine. It is a drug. And they are addicts. It's a root of it. But wealthy, materialistic people are drug addicts.
Yeah.
And you always need more and more. And you always need a fix. So that's, sorry, that's my missus telling me.
We've diverted, haven't we? Yeah, no, that's fine.
You know, at the heart of all of it, it comes down to what you just described there at Christmas. For me, that's an expression of God in Michelle.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I was brought up in a pub. So to me, Christmas is all about people celebrating, eating, busy. It's the busiest time of the year. And people having good times. So for me to be able to go to people that weren't going to have nothing at Christmas, knowing that that's how people celebrate Christmas. I mean, we just all worked it. It was the best time of the year. We worked the whole thing. It was lovely. To give them something was really good for me.
And you cared for others, and that is from God. In our religious tradition, you know, that first question, why do I believe we'll go to a better place and you'll go to not a better place? I'll turn that around and say, I don't actually believe that. And I don't think that the religion preaches that. The religion makes a distinction between someone who knowingly rejects good and knowingly rejects God. You knew better, and yet you said, no, I'm going to just only care about me, myself, and I. That person is a rejecter, and the Arabic word for that is a kafir, or disbeliever. But it's not just someone who doesn't believe. It's someone who chooses to reject good, virtue, kindness, and God. And do you know the English word good is just an extension of the word God?
Oh, there you go then.
Yeah, so what is good, it extends from God. It literally, there is only, the reason there's good, the reason you care about the person who's going to be lonely and not have anything over Christmas, what does that come? You don't gain anything out of it. You don't gain anything materially, but you gain something spiritually. You cared for them. You felt good for it. And the fact that you cared for them even before you did the act, where did that come from? That comes from God. That comes from God, because God created his creation, and he wants, but he could get involved and say, right, all of you sort yourselves out. Instead, he gives us conscience, and he gives us a higher reason, and he gives us, and then he leaves it up to us, and we choose whether we respond to the higher thought, higher conscience, and higher reasoning, or I
think a lot of people bury that.
Or we bury that, and we just decide, I need to look after me, myself, and I. I remember once, you know, when I was a student, many years ago now, used to set my alarm to make sure I got up and had deadlines to meet, and then I hit snooze, and I started doing the snooze button to the point that my brain decided, okay, ignore that noise, that's clearly not important. So my brain subconsciously must have
slept through it.
And now I'll sleep through. Then I went through a phase where I sleep through the alarm. Rest of my flatmates are like, oh, someone, you know, throwing things at me, but because I've conditioned my brain to not pay attention to that because I'm going to ignore it.
Yeah.
We can do that that when the conscience prods us and there's are you sure you want to do that? If we decide, yeah, whatever, I'm going to go and this is what I want to do. I'm not going to care about this person who looks like they're in desperate need. I mean, I've got my own stuff to care about. Every time I do that, I switch on to mute the voice of conscience to the point that I become deaf to it, to the point that I stop seeing, to the point that I stop caring. And that's the people that are held in harshest judgment in the sight of God. We have sort of gone over it by a little bit, but
yes.
I'd love to.
You always get diverted, don't you? Yeah, it was a nice conversation.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it too, and I'd be very happy to pick up again and maybe, you know,
maybe we'll get on to speak next time.
Yes, yeah. There's always hoping, you know.
Okay.
It's lovely speaking to you, Michelle. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Bye. Bye-bye.